Hi, it's Emma from Misfit Gardening, and in today's video I want to show you how I make my fermented chicken feed for my flock of chickens. Right now we have a mixture of meat birds and some layers, and I really like to give the chickens the fermented feed. They seem to really enjoy it. I have given it to them since they were baby chicks, and I've got some more chicks on the way in the next couple of weeks, so I wanted to start fermenting a bit more feed to give to our existing flock and also give to the baby chicks when they arrive. So let's get to it. There's a few things that I have. I have a mixture of herbs from the garden. So in here I have some sage, I have some oregano, I've got a mixture of different types of oregano, and I have some thyme that is all from the garden. It's all grown naturally on the homestead, so I have a lot of that. And I also have, these are garlic scapes or garlic scrapes, depending on how you pronounce it or say it or where you're from, but these are basically the flowering heads from a hardneck garlic. And I have quite a lot of these, so I am going to substitute my usual 2 or 3 cloves of garlic that I put into my chicken feed when fermenting. Yes, you heard me right, I use 2 to 3, but I'm going to use these garlic scapes instead. And of course you're going to need a large wide mouth jar. This is an old jar that had pickles in it, which is working great for us, but any large jar that you have should suffice. The other thing that you're going to need is chicken feed. So I have grower pellets right now, because I mostly have meat birds, and there's some scratch grains that are in here as well. So I've just filled this up. Now, one thing that you will need to know is this will all swell with the water. So I like to put a bit of water in and then leave it for an hour or so, and then come back and top up with more water depending on how dry and how much water we actually have in here. Because really what you want is you want at least an inch of water above the line of the feed in here to allow for that fermentation process to happen. So let's get to it and get started making this feed. So the first thing I'm going to do is just put some water in there to get things going. So this is just plain cold water, nothing special. Alright. And we're just going to let that do its thing. You can already see how much water's been absorbed. I'm going to go ahead and add some more. Just let it soak through, it's totally fine. The water may look a little cloudy on top, that's kind of normal. So whilst that's soaking, let's turn our attention to the herbs and stuff that we have. And I just roughly chop everything. I'm putting it in fresh. This is kind of how I've always done it. You can use dried herbs if it's, you know, out of season for them to be growing, but right now it's summer, so I have lots of herbs growing in abundance. This is a great way to get some extra nutrients into the chickens. Lots of different herbs have lots of different benefits. You can read about that from various sources online and at your leisure. So I'm just roughly chopping everything, nothing overly fancy there, and then I'm just going to put them into the jar here. It smells great. My husband calls this the pre-seasoning. So, alright, now I've got the herbs in there. Let's tackle these garlic scapes. Okay. So right now I've got the end that's starting to yellow, and I don't want that in there. I don't think it's going to harm it too much, but I'd rather just put that in the compost and take off the end that's dried out. I've had these for a few days and it's been kind of warm, so everything's drying off. But all I'm just doing is just chopping them into little bits. And nothing too difficult here. They're all kind of different sizes. So again, I'm going to take that yellowy end off, and take that end off. It's going to go in the compost. If I was doing clove garlic, I would thinly slice it, and I tend to use 3, maybe even up to 4 cloves. If you have a garlic press or a crusher, you could also use that. This is a good way to use up these garlic scapes that are abundant at this time of year in the summer, if you're growing hardneck garlic. You can probably see as we're cutting here that that water's also disappearing again. Let's get this big one in. So you can probably see this is already back up to the line again. This takes a lot more water than I always think. So before I'm going to top it up again, I'm just going to try and stir some of these herbs and garlic into here.
Mix it around a bit. Evenly distributed.
So you want to make sure that there's at least an inch of water above the line of where the feed is. So that's what I'm trying to keep an eye on. And this is why having like a large jar makes all the difference, especially if you're trying to do a big quantity of feed for your birds like I do. So this pickle jar works just great. If you look online on local classifieds, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, all of that stuff. I can't tell you how many times I keep seeing people who have these large pickle jars and stuff for free. So if you're not wanting to eat pickles, then you could definitely look at picking some up for free. So I'm going to cover this now. I'm going to cover this with an old tea towel that I have. So this is like a super old tea towel with lots of holes and things in it, so I'm just layering it over. I've got at least a double layer that's on there to keep things out, and then I've just got an elastic band, but you could use some string or whatever. I'm just putting it on there to try and keep out any flies or anything else that's kicking around here on the homestead, and just kind of protecting some of it from light. I can easily look and check to see how my fermented feed is doing, and we're gonna check in and see how this looks after a couple of days. What you will start to see, depending on the temperature of where you are doing this, the warmer that it is, the more faster that your fermentation is going to happen. But you'll start to see bubbles coming up, and you'll start to it will have like a distinct smell to it. But every day, at least twice a day, we want to come and stir everything up, because as we're stirring things up, we're adding the air into it that's going to help that fermentation process happen. So I really like a long-handled spoon to do that. It fits quite well into the jar, but you can use whatever you have available, just as long as it's clean. So you want to make sure things are clean before you're putting it into the fermented feed. For me, after about 3 days, this is what the chickens are most likely to eat. They find, I guess, the taste very appealing. I just put this out into a container and feed it to the chickens. So easy peasy.